quarterback position we never talk about for whatever reason, because I think it's usually because one guy can play the position, obviously. 1 out of 11 spots on offense are taken by the quarterback. It's not an offensive line position where there's multiple guys. We're not talking about depth a lot. But as we saw last year with Florida State, and when Jordan Travis got hurt, Tate Rodemaker brought in, that's why they didn't get in the playoffs. They were 14-0, but that was that big of a drop-off from Jordan Travis to Tate Rodemaker. And people saw that and did not put them in the playoffs. Conversation for another day. But there's situations like this all the time. I know Jalen Hurts didn't get hurt in the national championship game in 2017 against Georgia, but they had depth with Tua Tagovailoa. Texas wished they probably had a little bit more depth outside of Garrett Gilbert when Colt McCoy got hurt in 2009. Nick Saban, similar situation in 2001 in the SEC championship game when he was the head coach at LSU. I believe Rohan Davey got hurt, and you had to go put in Matt Malk, and that's where he springboarded. Ultimately led him 2 years later to a national championship. So we always forget about the backup quarterback situation. We always rank the quarterback rooms, in this case, 1 through 16, with the starter. And again, you're going to see some quarterbacks when I'm going through this SEC backup quarterback ranking. You're going to be like, why are they there? I'm not ranking the starter. If I was just ranking starters, this would look completely different. But again, I'm here to tell you our rank 1 through 16, the backup quarterback situations across this league. I'm your host, Dave Shumate from Mach 10 Sports, joining you on the SEC Unfiltered channel. Again, before we get started, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. This is SEC content 24/7, 365. But let's get right to it. Coming in at 16th for me here, the Missouri Tigers. Obviously, starter Brady Cook, a perfect example right here. I like Brady Cook as a player, but his backup, Aiden Glover, a true freshman from Collierville High School in Memphis, Tennessee, I don't think is ready to be. If Brady Cook went down, there would be a massive 5 to 6 game drop off, I think, for Missouri this year. He is that big of a deal to them. Again, if I was ranking the starting quarterbacks, he would be much higher, but I think this quarterback room for Missouri – and again, it's not because he's a true freshman. You'll see there's a team in this league I have pretty high that has a true freshman backup. So it's not that. It's just I don't think Aiden Glover in his maturation process is there to go take over, to just be that plug-and-play guy, or even have a little bit of a drop-off from Brady Cook, which is all you're really hoping for your quarterback, just a little bit of a drop-off. But I think there's a massive, big gap between Brady Cook and Aiden Glover, which is to be expected. But coming into number 15, the Mississippi State Bulldogs, Jeff Lebby's first-year starter, Blake Shapen, the redshirt freshman transfer from Baylor. Backup Chris Parson, redshirt freshman from Nashville. But the kid I like that I think will probably be the number 2, probably by middle of the year, probably getting those reps, is the Michael Van Buren, the true freshman from St. Francis Academy in Maryland. I like his ability to make plays with his legs. He can make all the throws to all 3 levels. I think Mike Wright entering the transfer portal only enhances that for him. Remember the Vanderbilt transfer that was at Mississippi State last year? He re-entered the portal. So I like Michael Van Buren there, but I still don't think he's ready to take over from Blake Shapen if Shapen were to go down or something were to happen where Shapen could no longer start. So give me Mississippi State at 15th. Again, I like Shapen and Brady Cook a lot better than I have the quarterback rooms ranked here at 15 and 16 for you Missouri and Mississippi State fans out there. This is just worst case scenario. Your backup quarterback room, if he goes out in early September or middle September, and you still got 75% of the season, 3/4 of the season to go, this is probably ranky. I don't feel good about it, but I like Michael Van Buren as a player down the road. I just don't think he's ready, similar to how I mentioned with Aiden Glover. Coming in at 14th, the Tennessee Volunteers. Nico Amalevea is the starter. Obviously, the redshirt freshman played well in this bowl game against Iowa. Backup quarterback, though, walk-on redshirt, probably junior, senior. I think he came over from UCF with Josh Heupel. Gaston Moore. Some may argue, too, Jake Merklinger, the true freshman from Savannah down in Calvary Day, would get that nod as well. I thought Gaston Moore looked solid in the spring game a little bit. Maybe a little bit of a product of the system. He's been in the system for a while, so he knows Heupel's system. But I think they would probably give Merklinger the nod there just from a – I mean, it probably depends where Tennessee is in their season. Are they still competing for the SEC? Is it early? What kind of game is it? Who are we playing here? Because I think Gaston Moore may be able to get them through a game easier and then let them go have a week to go get their ducks in a row, and maybe they roll with Jake Merklinger at that point. But just a lot of question marks in that quarterback room from a depth standpoint. Gaston Moore, I don't think is a guy that's going to go win Tennessee a bunch of games if he's got to go start 8-9 games if Nico got hurt early in the season. I think Jake Merklinger could develop into the better overall player, which I think most people would agree with, that higher upside kid if they ended up rolling with him. And I think you would see a big maturation process, big difference as the season went on. I think you'd see him getting better and better. Coming in 13th, The Arkansas Razorbacks, again, another starter I like, the Boise State transfer redshirt junior, Taylon Green coming in. Taylon Green, I like, he reminds me a little bit, again, not in Arkansas. This is not just because he's an Arkansas, but a little bit Matt Joneses. If people remember Matt Jones, played quarterback for Arkansas, a little off topic here, but was deceptively fast, a long strider, ultimately got drafted by the Jaguars at the receiver position, but man, was a playmaker in the early 2000s. Kind of reminds me of Taylon Green here. A lot more, can make plays in the pocket, in the passing game, but has deceptively good speed, long strider, faster than you think he is. But the backup situation not fired up, and that's why they're here at the ranked 13th. Remember, this is not ranking Taylon Green, Nico Amalavea, Blake Shapen, or Benny Cook, the starting quarterbacks in the league. This is ranking the backup quarterback situation if these starters were to go down. I'm not sold on the redshirt freshman from North Cobb, Malachi Singleton. I dealt with him in the recruitment when I was at UCF, running the recruiting department there for Coach Malzahn. Kind of fit Coach Malzahn's system better a little bit there. I think when he signed with Arkansas, Singleton, I think Kendall Briles was the offensive coordinator there. Don't really think he fits Bobby Petrino, what he wants to do. A little bit of a slower processor. Now that I remember correctly, I wasn't overly fired up about it. A lot of inconsistencies in his game. Would like to see a little bit more leadership ability. I don't remember seeing that a lot out of high school. So it'd be interesting if he had to take over for Taylon Green early in September or middle of the season. How would he rally that locker room as a young cat, as a redshirt freshman, under a coach who's going to coach him hard, Bobby Petrino? Can he take that? Because the locker room's going to see that. The locker room's going to see how he handles that Bobby Petrino hard coaching if he had to go play. Is he going to go get a little disappointed, get in his feels, or would he take that next step and bring the team together? I heard that was a little bit of an issue for Arkansas last year with KJ Jefferson. But again, I like Arkansas' starter. I think he's going to do some good things. I like the things he did in the spring game. But the backup quarterback situation with Jacoby Criswell hitting the portal, Malachi Singleton, I don't know. Not overly fired up about that one. So that's why Arkansas comes in at 13th. 12th, some people may say this a little higher. Starter, I think this is going to be the starter. He's not on campus yet, but the New Mexico State senior transfer, Diego Pavia. Auburn fans do not want to hear that name. That was the kid who had the big game on the Plains late November. He led the upset for the Aggies over Auburn last year. So he's supposedly transferring to Vanderbilt. Not on campus yet, but I'm giving him the nod as a starter. Backup quarterback? Probably a little higher than most people think, but it's Utah redshirt sophomore transfer Nate Johnson. Started in the Florida game last year for him. Started in the Baylor game for the Utes last year. He's not going to go blow you away with stats, but just a very efficient style of play. Now, tip of the cap to Utah and Kyle Whittingham playing within his strengths. Doesn't turn the ball over. Uses his legs. Short, intermediate passing game, because that's what he can do, and they'll take shots off play action. That's what they do. If you can build a game plan around him, he can be a serviceable backup, especially at a place like Vanderbilt where you're not going to get the top flight quarterback. You're going to need a guy to probably go be improvise and make plays with his legs. So that's why I like Nate Johnson here. A little higher than probably a lot of people have Vanderbilt, but I think it's a solid backup. Again, you're not going to be loaded like it was that one year. I mentioned it earlier. You're not going to have Tua, Jalen, and Mac Jones in one room anymore. That's not happening anymore. So if you can have a guy that comes from one of the more consistent power, it was the Power 5 when it was the Pac-12. Now it's the Power 4. Comes from a consistent program like Utah, started some games, won some games on the road, beat another SEC team as a starter. I'll take that as my backup. So that's why I have Vanderbilt at 12 with Nate Johnson. Coming in at 13th, the Kentucky Wildcats. And I maybe thought about moving Vanderbilt up here 11th. Maybe I had this too high. Starter Brock Vandegrift, the redshirt junior coming over from Georgia. But the backup, what we're ranking this on, is the redshirt senior transfer Bo Allen, who'd been at Kentucky before, went and played at a couple different other places. I think Charleston State. He was at Georgia Southern. Was one of the most improved players on the offense throughout the spring, Mark Stoops said. So I'll be interested to see how that goes. Maybe you could throw in, here's another name. I've thrown in a couple others. Maybe the true freshman from Lexington gets that nod, Cutter Boley. But I'm honestly expecting Bo Allen, who's been around the block, sit out a year. He's played, would be a solid backup probably for Brock Vandegrift had he had to play. But I was back and forth between moving Kentucky here to 11 or 12, them in Vanderbilt, vice versa. You can make a case either way. Bowen hadn't played in a year, but he has put up good numbers against solid FCS competition. Seems like he's improved. He was always mentioned in spring articles when you're reviewing practice and the spring game for Kentucky, Mark Stoops. So I like him. I think he could go finish a game. You build a game plan around him if you have a week to prepare. But Brock Vandegrift is the starter, but the backup room, put Bo Allen there. But again, you can make a case for me. You could move this around a little bit. But I just put it here at 11. Number 10. The LSU Tigers, the starter is going to be Garrett Nussmeier, the Nuss Buzz. Backup, I don't know. I'm a little split on this. Talking to people that have been around the program, it's Ricky Collins, the redshirt freshman from Baton Rouge, from Woodlawn High School, or the Vanderbilt transfer. Speaking of Vanderbilt, the A.J. Swan, the junior transfer. So they have a guy that started a lot in the SEC. Granted, he got pulled last year at Vanderbilt. And they got a solid kid. They took in-state that I heard a lot of people probably should have went to, like, Louisiana. And when I say Louisiana, I'm talking about ULL, Louisiana Lafayette, for you old school people. But Ricky Collins, you went back and watched some practice tape. You like what they're doing in Skelly and 7-on-7, but again, they're not taking any hits. So it'll be interesting to see what a guy like Ricky Collins would do in that situation. I probably got him. Some people may have him a little higher, but I like him at 10. A lot of unproven ability from Ricky Collins. Serviceable backup. But A.J. Swan, similar maybe to Bo Allen at Kentucky, has some starts. He's played in the SEC. Bo Allen hasn't, but they've played at the college level before, but overly not fired up. I don't think this is a high ceiling backup room. And again, you're not going to have a ton of high ceiling rooms. Like I mentioned, that Alabama 17 quarterback, you're not going to have that anymore, not with the transfer portal. But I think your ceiling could be a little higher than that. There's another school down the line a little bit here that you're probably, well, how'd you have them rank this high? But you had A.J. Swan. Just a little bit more production and higher upside as an overall player. Here, I'm just, I think LSU's going to have to go find that next quarterback after Garrett Nussmeier, after he leaves here. I don't think either of these guys are the future. So that's why I'm going to put it here at 10. I would put it here at 10. And I think it's a little bit of an unknown, too much to unknown. So that's why I put it at 10. Ricky Collins hadn't played. A.J. Swan started some, but hadn't played great. So I'm going to put that at 10 there. Number 9, Texas A&M, kind of wingman, the redshirt sophomore, going to get the start. Back up. He made some plays last year against Mississippi State. Jalen Henderson, the Fresno State transfer from 2 years ago. He was at Texas A&M last year, played in games against Mississippi State. And then the other kid from NBA in Nashville, Marcel Reed, the redshirt freshman. Jalen Henderson's played a little bit well at Fresno State, played well against SEC competition. So I gave him a little bit of the nod here, especially with his ability to improvise, make plays with his legs. I'm always factoring that in the backup quarterback because if you have offensive line issues like a lot of teams do, and especially depth, your backup quarterback needs to be able to do some things that are off scheme because he's already the backup quarterback. So you're already limited from a personnel standpoint what you can do. And you can't always just scheme it up except playing within their strengths. But I think when you have a running quarterback, similar to Nate Johnson at Vanderbilt, the Utah transfer, Jalen Henderson, I think that adds a little bit more different dynamic. So that's why I gave Jalen Henderson. He started, made plays, had a good game against Mississippi State. I mean, Marcel Reed played pretty well in the Texas Bowl against Oklahoma State. So you have some guys who've played against solid competition, have made plays. Both can make plays with their legs. I'm giving them the nod over LSU here. So that's why I got Texas A&M coming in at 9th. South Carolina coming in at 8th. The starter, Lenore Sellers, redshirt freshman. Some people will tell you this is still a battle. I think it's going to be Sellers. So that puts the backup situation with Robbie Ashford, the Auburn transfer, the senior grad, played at Oregon, was on Oregon's baseball team from Hoover, transferred to Auburn, played probably his best game in his college career was his ability to run probably in the 22 Iron Bowl. I think that was Cadillac Williams and them had a good game plan. So, utilize his legs. I like the improvisation, the ability to use your legs as a backup quarterback. Both these quarterbacks for South Carolina, Sellers and Ashford, can make plays with their legs. I think Sellers, like I said, is going to win the job. But Robbie Ashford played in the SEC, played a good amount in the SEC. Him being your backup, it's not a bad situation, honestly. It's really not a bad situation. So that's why I put them at 8th. Experience, improvisation, has shown a little productivity. And again, it's the backup quarterback situation we're ranking there. Coming in at 7, speaking of the former Auburn Tigers, the starter is going to be the senior transfer, Peyton Thorne. Backup, Holden Gerner, the redshirt sophomore from Benedictine Military. And also someone probably throw in a little bit, Hank Brown, the redshirt freshman from Lipscomb Academy in Nashville. If you watched the Music City Bowl against Maryland, you saw Hank Brown play a little bit. Probably played the best out of them all, a little, if you want to be honest. But Peyton Thorne apparently has taken that next step. Leader, they like him as the starter from talking to people over there. Holden Gerner, I think they're holding out to be the guy, the redshirt sophomore. Hugh Freeze likes him. He started getting the 2 reps over Robbie Ashford towards the middle of November last year. So he took that next step. I kind of like Gerner in Hugh Freeze's system. And if this is truly Hugh Freeze's offense here, and this isn't just Philip Montgomery from last year, like a lot of people you talked to, Hugh Freeze is fully taken on this offense, and he's developing the quarterbacks. This is Kent Austin's helping. This is their Ole Miss days where they're developing quarterbacks within their system. I think Holden Gerner will be a solid backup. He gets another spring. Sounds like he was coming in on towards the end, like I mentioned, took over the 2 reps. And so you have a spring, has a fall camp. I think if he had to play, I think he could be serviceable in Hugh Freeze's system because I think Hugh Freeze is a good teacher within his system, good play caller. So I like Auburn here. Some may disagree here, but I like Gurner in this backup situation if something were to happen with Peyton Thorne. Number 6, this is the one where some people may make, Oklahoma Sooners. The starter's going to be Jackson Arnold, sophomore. Had us flash a little bit in the Alamo Bowl. Had some turnovers for sure, but he's going to be the starter. The backup, the wily veteran. This is very Chase Daniel backup to be Casey Thompson. Yes, you heard me right. Casey Thompson, the senior transfer, been to Texas, been to Nebraska, been to FAU, coming off, I think, an ACL there, but he's played a lot. I don't think he's ever been below a 60% passer in a season that he's played. Again, we're ranking backup quarterbacks here. If he's healthy, you would take Casey Thompson to go finish a game, get you through the last couple of games. Heck, it could be a lot worse if he had to go finish the last 75%, 3/4 of the season for you. I think, again, he can run a bunch of different offenses. He can make plays with his legs. He's experienced in the Big 12, Big 10. He's done a solid job when he's played. So I like Casey Thompson here. This is the one I could see people kind of nitpicking big. What if he's healthy? Let's put a little asterisk by that. If he's healthy, I like this backup situation. Again, he's not the future. You may even start a freshman, but if you had to get through a game, he's played a lot of football. Talented, older cat, mature cat, I think could help, honestly, Jackson Arnold in a maturation process. But just off the ability, if it had to play, I wouldn't dislike Casey Thompson having to play. Going to number 5, the Ole Miss Rebels. Starter Jackson Dart, the senior transfer. Backup Walker Howard, the redshirt sophomore, coming over from LSU, originally from St. Thomas More High School. And then Austin Simmons, when he's not on the diamond, coming in as a kind of a situational guy, left-handed pitcher for the baseball team, the redshirt freshman from Moorhaven. He'll be in the fight too at this backup situation. So I like the Rebs here at the 5th spot. I think Walker Howard, when you factor in Lane Kiffin, I think it's a solid situation here if Jackson Dart were to go down. Now, is there going to be a gap? Yeah, but I like where Walker Howard be. He would sat for a little bit for a year and then a spring. He would know what Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss want. I would feel comfortable him within that system. For sure. Similar to Holden Gurner at Auburn. I just trust Hugh Freeze and Lane Kiffin as quarterback developers within their systems, especially Lane Kiffin. That Walker Howard's been there. It's not like he's like, all right, he just came in the summer. Now he's forced in. He's had a whole year and an extra spring. I like Walker Howard in this situation. And Austin Simmons, a kid that can make moves and has probably maybe a little bit of a higher ceiling overall. But again, he's been playing baseball in the spring. I bet he's a little bit behind. But I don't dislike this backup quarterback situation if things were to went down. A lot of it because I trust Lane Kiffin's development of Walker Howard. Number 4, the Alabama Crimson Tide, a room everybody was a little worried about last year when it was Tyler Buckner, Ty Simpson, and Jalen Miller. Well, it's pretty much the same, but they're coming in at 4. I think some people may say there's a quarterback competition still. I think it's Jalen Milroe's job. It's going to be the redshirt junior's job. Backup quarterback, they're going to go see the redshirt sophomore Ty Simpson. I think Kalen DeBoer, Nick Sheridan are going to develop him in. And then also don't be surprised if Dylan Lonergan starts, the redshirt freshman, starts getting a little bit more action as well. But I'm going to go with Ty Simpson as the backup here. I think you'd be fired up if you're Alabama either way because I think these guys are really going to get developed between Sheridan and Kalen DeBoer. Similar, there's certain guys in the league as quarterback developers that I'm baking that into these rankings. It's usually Hugh Freeze when his hands are fully on. And from what I'm hearing from people at Auburn, he is fully hands-on now. So I'm checking that box. Lane Kiffin and Kalen DeBoer. So if you notice, I have their guys in the top 7 of these ranking the backup quarterback situations in the SEC heading to 24. So I trust that Ty Simpson's only going to make that next leap. Dylan Lonergan is. And then even from a starter standpoint, that's not even what we're ranking here. Is Ty, I think Jalen Milroe is going to take that next step. But I trust the redshirt sophomore from Martin, Tennessee, Ty Simpson, to step up if he had to go play a game and may not give the job back. He's that kind of guy, and he's more athletic than people think. So I like Alabama there at 4. Number 3, the Florida Gators starter, Graham Mertz, redshirt senior transfer. I think one of the more underrated players was really coming on at the end of the year. But for the backup situation, this is the one I talked about earlier. I think when I was talking about Aiden Glover in Missouri coming in at 16th. This isn't just because I didn't rank Glover last just because he was a freshman, or Mississippi State 15th with Michael Van Buren because he's a freshman. The backup quarterback, DJ Lagway from Willis, Texas, the freshman, the number 2 overall quarterback in this class behind Julian Sayin. I like Lagway. You go watch that spring game from Florida 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. He spitballs into tight windows. Go check out the play when they're getting, I think, just in the red zone, and he fits it into Aiden Measel in a tight window. Gets it flips his shoulders real fast, gets the safety to turn his hips, and just fits it right into a tight window. It wasn't an easy throw still. It wasn't a really bad play by the safety. It was just DJ Lagway has that arm talent, has that natural raw ability to get things done. Would it be a little bit of a learning curve if Graham Mertz went down, who I think was, again, one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the country last year before he got hurt? They were really coming along. I think they scored like 30 points in 4 of their last 5 when he was healthy. But I think there would be a drop-off a little bit, but the ceiling is much higher with Lagway over Mertz. Ceiling would be much higher. I mean, it'll be honest to see how they handle this, the whole Billy Napier situation about him keeping his job with Lagway already on roster. You have to keep him on the roster. He's your quarterback of the future. I like what DJ Lagway is doing, so that's why I got the Florida quarterback situation. What may surprise some, coming in at number 3. Number 2, the Georgia Bulldogs starter Carson Beck, the redshirt senior from Jacksonville. It's his job, but the backup quarterback from Rabun County, the redshirt sophomore, Gunnar Stockton, hard-nosed kid, likes to win, understands the Georgia way. I think would be a shoe-in. I think it would be obviously a drop-off. There's going to be a drop-off with all these guys. You keep hearing me say this. But I think if Carson Beck got hurt early, I think you can see Gunnar Stockton kind of start rapidly not missing a beat, hitting his stride towards the end of that. Towards the end of the season, depending how long he had to play, if he got adjusted, how many weeks he had to prepare. But I like Gunnar Stockton here. Everything you hear from people you trust at Georgia, he's that next guy for him. I like Gunnar Stockton. Tough, hard kid. I read an article. Who was it? Was it Malachi? No, it wasn't Malachi Starks. Who was it? I forget. It was one of Georgia's maybe it was Malachi Starks. Somebody got Gunnar Stockton in high school to play safety, I think, a little bit too, and knocked the crap out of somebody. He was saying one of the hardest hits he had in his life. I mean, the kid is a tough kid, wants to win, fits Georgia perfectly. I think he's the next QB1 at Georgia. I think it'd be a little bit of a plug and play. Obviously, a little bit of a drop off, but I wouldn't be too worried if I was Georgia if Gunnar Stockton had to go play a bunch this year for me. And then number 1, come as no shocker. I think you could flip flop this one in Georgia, but number 1 is the Texas Longhorns. The starter is going to be Quinn Ewers, the redshirt junior transfer, but the backup is going to be none other than Arch Manning. Isidore Newman, the redshirt freshman, looked really good in the spring game. I mean, he scored on one of those, a bust by the defense. But again, Arch Manning, what I really liked about him, and this is a tip of the cap to Steve Sarkisian and his ability to continue just to develop quarterbacks, see their maturation process, see how much better they're getting from a pocket awareness, going through their progressions, going to the check down, turning your shoulders, getting the safety to flip his hips, stuff like that. The thing I was really impressed about with Arch, you can see him. He can layer it. He can layer the football. He can throw it to all 3 levels, hash to hash. Was his pocket awareness? And I know people are going to be like, well, it's a spring game, man. You can't get hit. You could just tell that would translate into a real game. His ability, just those half steps, stepping over the pocket, stepping up to the side, just was on balance, was in unison, just looked really good. You could tell Arch Manning is stepped up his game. If Quinn Ewers went down, again, there would be a little bit of a drop-off naturally. I think there would be a quick learning curve for Arch Manning. This totally looks like his team heading into 2025 would be shocked. He's handled it perfectly. But Texas comes in as the number 1 backup quarterback situation in the SEC, in my opinion. I'll be posting a graphic of this, guys, very soon on social media. Comment, tell me your rankings. I would love to hear it from you. But again, I'm your host, Dave Shumate, coming at you from the SEC Unfiltered. This is ranking the 1 through 16, adding Texas and Oklahoma in now, ranking the backup quarterback situations in the SEC. Again, not ranking the quarterback rooms, the backup situations. If your quarterback went down for injury or whatever, if he had to play, this is how I'd rank it, 1 through 16. I hope you enjoyed this segment here from the SEC Unfiltered platform. Again, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. It's SEC all the time, baby. 24/7, 365 coming at you. Again, I'm your host, Dave Shumate. Have a phenomenal day.